Matt Lenihan, Boxing Social, in association with Empire Fight Store. We're here in Barnsley. A nice short trip for myself and for you today. Callum Simpson, opportunity for him, headlining Zach Chelly. It's going to be a good fight week.
I think it's going to be a good fight week for the fans. I think hopefully the weather will hold up and a really big good weather. We're right in the middle of Barnsley town centre. And it's just got that nice summer feel. I was with Callum at a dinner probably 2 weeks ago. So focused, so on it. Zach Chelly understands that this is a fight that he's got to stamp his authority to say, right, you've got to come and take what I've got. Zach Chelly knows what he's capable of doing. I think it's going to be a really hard fight for Callum, if I'm honest with you. And he'll learn so much from it about himself, his position, and we'll see so much of where he is as well. Because I think Zach Chelly, I do think he's at his ceiling, but this ceiling is a hard one to break through because Zach Chelly's a tough cooker.
The way I liken it is, it's one of them, if you don't turn up, a guy like Zach Chelly can make you look quite silly. He's a very experienced operator at this level.
Zach Chelly is strong. I know him, I know his dad. I'm a massive fan of Zach, and again, I'm not going to be one of these people that says Callum walks through him, Callum deals with him, because I'm not saying that. I think this is a hard fight, and Zach's got to be the favourite. It's a hard fight for him. Of course, I want, Yorkshire blood to do it, but this is a hard fight for Callum, which I hope he gets through. But you know what? Do not write on Zach.
Absolutely. Look, as well as this fight week, we've got another one going on across the seas. I'm going to start with, not with the main event. I want to start with Martin Bakole, Jared Anderson. For me, that's the most interesting fight, obviously apart from the Crawfords, on the card for me. He's got
an opportunity to show his skills, because he's like one of those guys that everybody avoids, nobody wants to talk about. And so again, he can back up the boast. Let's say because he's talking about what he did to Usyk and everybody else in sparring. These are all the great talk. I was in the studio with him, so now he's got a chance to back up the boast for people to believe. You know what? This guy is not all talk, because right now, the proof is in the pudding, and this will be one of those fights.
When you look at the main event, obviously Terence Crawford, a lot of talk about we want to see Crawford and Canelo, but Israil Madrimov's coming off a very good win and is a natural at that weight. Crawford, though, pound for pound, for me, in my eyes, is number one in the world. Obviously, the takeaway, etc. How do you see this main event going? And obviously, we talked to Canelo leading in the background. What do you make of it?
I think the Canelo one, I think it'd be biting off too much, look too far. I think Crawford technically is very gifted. Technically, he's on point, and he finds a way. I think Crawford, I would lean towards him, but again, this isn't a shutout night. Crawford is an unbelievable fighter, but his opponent, he's like, he can go. He can go. So will it be brawn over brain? We don't know.
Interesting times. I think in terms of boxing at the minute, we're seeing all these big fights get made. One of the fights that we may see the back end of this year, Gervonta Tank Davis was supposed to fight Lomachenko. Loma's pulled out, not motivated, according to Edgar. Shakur Stevenson still without an opponent. I talked to Gareth Davis about this, and we were saying, aside from the heavyweights fights, is that potentially the next biggest fight in boxing if that gets made?
There are so many potential fights that can be made, and of course it's a case of what decisions he'll make in regards to his career. But one thing he has done is got everybody's attention, and so it's a case of he doesn't want the soft touches, which he can, but there are some amazing fights that he can get involved in. It's his choice. We can only speculate until that decision's been made.
Do you think a fight between Gervonta and Shakur, is that how would you see that one? Because Shakur, in all credit to him, he does get a lot of stick, but when it's been called upon and he steps up against an Oscar Valdez, he's put hurting on people, kind of thing. But when he feels like sometimes maybe the opponents aren't at that level, he sort of coasts to victory.
He performs under par. So I think he needs a challenge like Davis to bring the best out in him. Davis is proven. Davis is constantly, forever surprising, showing some other artillery to his fight. He's constantly doing that. So I think this kind of fight is great, perfectly suited. It's not about the fighters, it's the businessmen that are around it that's saying, does this suit us? Does this suit our narrative? Does this suit our TV deal? So these guys, I'm quite sure we want to fight each other. But this is the business side of it that unfortunately it affects us, the fans, when we want to see this.
We were looking forward to seeing Canelo Alvarez. Obviously, everyone wants the Benavidez fight, but Chris Eubank Jr. recently signed, obviously, with Boxer, with Sky Sports. Everyone was that fight was seemingly in the works. It's not happened. Give me your honest opinion. Are you surprised it's not happening? And now, what do you make of what's next for Chris potentially? What are the big fights for him?
I'm not surprised it's not happening. I remember Chris and his dad were talking about him fighting Triple G. And it wasn't even a consideration. But once you started putting Chris's name in the same sentence as Triple G, then it heightened his stock. Again, it seems like same story, different actors. And so I not at one point could I actually see this happen. But Chris is one of the very few fighters that's in an unbelievably lucrative position where he can pick who he wants to an extent. But then, Canelo look at him saying, how do you work for me? Do the numbers add up for me? Probably doesn't. So this isn't a Chris call out. This is for Canelo. This is not Canelo's choice. Chris doesn't have a choice in this. So it might be on his wish list, but that fight is not in Chris's hands.
In terms of Canelo Berlanga, I know it's come with some criticism, but at the end of the day, he's earned his shot as Berlanga. He's put himself into that position. Canelo has to fight him or potentially vacate belts. I know Canelo maybe at some point now he's classed as bigger of the belts and can do what he wants. But Berlanga, Canelo, you any interest in it?
Of course, I'm always interested in watching Canelo. I think it's an amazing fight, and every fight looks unbeatable until he's beaten. And when it's gone, it's gone. You saw the weekend, Derek Chisora and Joe Joyce, and you just thought, wow, Joe Joyce had just gone where this guy looked like a tank, formidable at one point. So Canelo's day will come, but at the moment he's been smart enough to pick the fights that who he wants that suits him. So I totally get it, and so it's the Canelo show, like you have with Asia. It's an Asia show.
Sorry, we just got to that point where the speakers nearly blew up. I just want to touch those last two from me. Derek Chisora, an old friend. Are you joking? Derek Chisora beat Joe Joyce and upsetting a lot of people's eyes. He says, look, I've got another 2 fights left kind of thing. Just give me your reaction to him beating Joe Joyce and what potentially could be next.
I phoned Derek a couple of days before the fight because I looked at this fight like everybody else did and thought this is a dangerous fight for Derek. And I said he should jack in probably a year or so ago. And not because he hasn't got the fight in him, because he's got unbelievable fight in him, but to care for himself. And I looked at him, I thought, I was watching the videos of him, watching what he's done in boxing, and I thought, this guy is actually made such a contribution to our fight game. He's been a pest, he's been persistent, he's been a terror, but he's always had us talking. And I phoned him, I said, you know what, I've got to give you respect, man, because at first I used to think he was a dickhead, but I actually like you. I actually like him, I actually like everything, every contribution he's putting in our game. And so I thought, there's no reason, because up to that point, I said, George used to do him, I thought, well, why would he? There's no reason why Derek should lose. Derek's been there, he's done that, he's had hard battles, he's been in tough fights, and this is going to be a tough fight. He had to box smart, he had to box crafty, and it was the last thing anybody expected, because we expected Derek to try and walk him down, and we thought, the Joe Joyce we know, he's not going to do that, but the Joe Joyce we know has gone, because that Joe Joyce, you probably see it gone in the Cash Alley fight, and when it's gone, it's gone. And I think Derek, I'm so glad for him. It's opponents now. If he's deciding to carry on and have 2 more fights,
Dillian White, been out the ring a while. Does that somewhat make sense? I know this is a wild shout, but maybe not as much anymore. People were talking about Wilder.
Derek's going to go for where the money is, because he's not an idiot. Derek can look at these young guns like Wardley or Clark and say, you know what, I'll go out on a domestic high. I know for what, but at the end of the day, you look at what happened on Saturday night. It was the Derek Chisora show. It was absolutely packed out. So Derek knows he's like giving it a farewell, and the fans will come to watch him fight. So even if he box, the young guns coming through, there's still excitement there, still pulls the money in. There's risk there, but the risk of getting absolutely slaughtered by somebody that's head and shoulders above him are very slim to none. And so it's Derek's choice, and it's going to be more of a business decision than a heart decision.
Last one from me. The Olympics have stirred up quite a lot of talking points. So in terms of everything that's surrounded it, from opening ceremony to judging for the likes of a Delicious, who I think in many people's eyes thought he won that fight clearly, to fighters being allowed in the competition who had failed testosterone and gender eligibility tests. I mean, there's been so many storylines come from it. What's your opinion? What's your takeaway from all this? Because it's riled a lot of people up.
Okay, so the Olympics is supposed to be about fair sport. Fair sport for all. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing that in the decisions that are being made. You know, it's now a political show more than anything else. It's a political performance that we're seeing right there. Because they're basically saying to you, believe us, not your lying guys. They're basically saying to you, believe our narrative, what we think is right, and not yours because you're wrong. Fair's gone. So the Olympics, the whole point of the Olympics, it's been lost in translation. It's just, and again, the lunatics are taking over the asylum. Fair's fair. In every argument you put there, you've got to be fair, you've got to be right. And the Olympics, to me, is just not showing that.
Look, we'll leave it at that. We could talk about that for forever and a day. Johnny, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks for talking to Boxing Social. Let's roll on Fight Night. I appreciate your time.
Oh, I look forward to it.